Hello lovelies! Welcome back to another travel episode of Squeaky's Cauldron. We're going back to Konya this week because I forgot a couple of things on my first visit. Namely, some filming equipment that I left in my hotel room. Many thanks to the staff at the Nun Hotel for contacting me right away and holding on to it until I returned. It was a blessing in disguise, really, because this gave me the perfect opportunity to check out a couple offerings that are a must-see for any visit. The Mevlana Panorama Museum, and a performance of the Whirling Dervishes, otherwise known as the Sema ceremony. Let's check it out! The Mevlana Panorama Museum is a lovely complex dedicated to Rumi, which houses beautiful artwork, miniature replicas of Mevlana mosques from all over the world, a pictorial exploration of Rumi's life, and a 360-degree panorama diorama depicting daily life in 13th century Konya. Immediately upon entering, I was impressed by the details. Of course, this is Turkey, where attention to details in art and architecture are the norm. Still, my whole time in this beautiful country left me wide-eyed and staring. I mean, look at the carvings in this light fixture. Stunning. The replicas in the museum are just a sampling of the structures named after Rumi that are all over the world. I love miniatures like these, especially when so much care has been put into the reproduction. Here we see the Mevlana Mausoleum complex, which we visited in full scale in the last video. Seeing it all in fraction scale is mildly disorienting, like I've been transported momentarily to a sideways place where size doesn't really matter anymore. Along the walls of the outer hallway hang paintings from devotees of a wide variety of styles. There's the straightforward representational art, and then some which take the impressions of the mosque and create something I dare say is more evocative, at least for me. As I ventured inward, I was drawn down a staircase to the more informational part of the museum. Here, paintings illustrate Rumi's life, at least the parts of Rumi's life the museum decided to include. You can get an app that scans the paintings that provides a spoken explanation, like a self-guided tour on your phone. This is available in English as well as Turkish and other languages. So I just wanted to jump in here and say a couple of things about my experience in this part of the Panorama Museum. It was definitely mixed. While I very much appreciated the information that was given, I love learning about things, especially when I am learning about someone's life who I deeply appreciate and has touched my life in so many ways. I couldn't help but feeling like much of it was being filtered through a particular lens. That is the lens of a fairly conservative and quite possibly dogmatic view of the Muslim faith, and having things cherry-picked through that lens, which left me feeling a bit uncomfortable. Alas, that was my experience of much of Konya. It left me feeling a little bit uncomfortable. Likely because the entire city is fairly conservative and quite possibly coming from a rather dogmatic approach to the Muslim faith. And if you know me at all, you will know that conservatism and dogmatism are anathema to me. The depictions of Rumi's life in the Panorama Museum reminded me a lot of the Latter-day Saints Church History Museum in Salt Lake City. There were panoramas there and dioramas, art, and lots of information that felt very much like it had been washed through a fairly conservative and quite probably dogmatic approach to a particular religion. Only in this case, here in this museum, in the case of Rumi, the washing fell over the life of a man whose poetry, whose teachings have changed and saved lives, which made the flavor a little more bitter. Upstairs from this section of the museum is the room the whole place is named after, the infamous Panorama. It's really a combination panorama diorama with wax figures, animals, and various bits and pieces of life in the 13th century added for flair. Honestly, it's a very cool experience. Looking out at the scene with the blue painted ceiling overhead and the haunting music playing around me, I could almost imagine myself back there. The big thing missing, I think, is the smell. One thing I've learned in my travels is that every place has a unique smell. And this is almost more defining of the place for my memory than any sight or sound. Except maybe the calls to prayer here in Turkey. I won't soon be forgetting those. After the museum, I found a poster for the Whirling Dervishes that advertised bi-weekly performances, on days I would again not be in town. Feeling disappointed and considering extending my stay for another night, I went out to grab a bite. I had another Konya specialty, tirit, which is a deeply comforting dish of bread, bouillon, meat, and yogurt, at a beautiful restaurant with a view of the Mevlana Mosque. What happened next was both a happy synchronicity and massively irritating. Okay, I am currently rushing to the Mevlana Cultural Center to see Sema. The reason I'm rushing is because when I came down here, there's a flyer that said that the Sema didn't happen on Saturday. Today's Saturday. The flyer said that it happens on Sunday and on Friday. Okay. Oh, here comes the call to prayer. Interesting. So the restaurant I dined at, the guy that I was paying said that I must have been in the restaurant before because he recognized me, which I hadn't. Then he said something about the sema and I was like, oh, I can't see it, blah, blah, blah. At which point he calls his friend and I'm like, okay, so it's happening at 7 tonight, right? And he's nodding at me, yes, yes, yes. And then he gets off the phone and he's like, now, mind you, this is 6:45, and he says, oh, it's not happening. It's not happening. I'm like, what the fuck? My point of this is, I'm gonna go see a cool performance, and men can be so incredibly stupid, because eventually he was just like, yeah, it's happening at 7 o'clock at this place that you have to walk 10 minutes at least to get to. Whatever. Okay, we're gonna have fun tonight. The Mevlana Cultural Center at sunset. At this point, I had about 5 minutes before the sema was scheduled to start, but I could not resist this lighting. The auditorium is lined with gorgeous artwork, more of the religious calligraphy we saw at Mevlana's tomb, and can host a lot more people than showed up for the performance this evening. They also have an outdoor performance space, which would be great on a warm summer night. The sema begins with one dervish lying out a small rug, from which the main dervish will kind of direct the performance. You'll see. Then the dancers file in and take their places. A brief announcement is made about etiquette, and prayers are offered. This is followed by a ney performance. That is the flute-like instrument which has become integral to sema and Sufi music in general. All of this sets the tone, helping both dancers and audience to drop into a space of meditation, ideally, in order to be open to the spiritual significance of the dance. This is an excerpt from the Turkish Ministry of Culture and Tourism's website. While the whirling dervishes are spinning in the Mevlevi sema as a symbol of the heavenly realm, the chief dervish moves among them, making sure they maintain proper distance between them. The person who directs the ceremony is called the postnishin, and he stands at the end of a red fleece reciting prayers. It is that the sema represents the solar system because the place where it is performed is round, and the post-nishin is compared to the sun, the chief dervish to the moon, and the dervishes to the planets. The Selam portion of the Sema ceremony consists of 4 segments. The first Selam describes how humans accept their status as created beings. The second Selam, the rapture felt when confronted with God's omnipotent power. The third Selam, the transformation of rapture at God's power into love. And the fourth Selam, how humans return to serve. The ceremony ends with the reading of the Quran and prayers. This ceremony requires skill and concentration to perform and includes mystical symbols at several stages from the beginning to the end. Whirling during the sema represents witnessing God in all places and aspects. The stamping of the feet symbolizes crushing the boundless, insatiable desires of the ego underfoot, striving against and defeating the ego. Holding one's arms out to the side is the need for ultimate perfection. During the sema, the arms are open with the right hand held up and the left hand down, which symbolizes blessing from God received with the right hand while turning away from everyone else and distributing these blessings with the left hand. Though I've seen a number of people online griping about how this ceremony has been commodified and its depth lost to tourism, I can attest to its power to transform. In the audience that night, there were plenty of people who'd come to see the dance as a way to check off another attraction during their visit to Konya, and there were children. Oh, children. I am not a big fan of kids in general, with a couple of outstanding exceptions. But all kids can be restless, overexcitable, and not really suited to a solemn religious ceremony. A few aisles in front of me was one such child, a young boy who just could not sit still. He very quickly began climbing all over the chairs, all over his parents, who were extremely calm to the point of seemingly not caring, and eventually up the aisles, past me. Guys, he kept getting in my video. And at first I was really irritated. I kept thinking ill thoughts towards him, towards his parents, like, rein your progeny in, please. But as the ceremony progressed, I could feel whatever was happening on the dance floor working its subtle magic on my heart and in turn on my thoughts. Slowly, my inner eye opened and I saw that kid not as a troublesome distraction, but as part of the ceremony. This kid and his parents were not apart from an experience of God. None of us are, and that's the point. We're all a part of God. And when my vision shifted to this fundamental truth, my heart blossomed open toward this little boy, as well as to his parents, the dancers, the other people in the auditorium, and to myself. This boy was acting out the irrepressible energy we find in baby Krishna, and it became a thing of beauty to witness. I truly believe that the dance, the energy those men were channeling, and my own willingness to be open to it allowed this shift in perspective. So I ended the evening full of agape instead of antagonism. The ceremony ended quietly, without fanfare. The dancers made their way backstage. There was no clapping. There was no moment when clapping would have felt appropriate, which felt a bit strange to me, unlike performances I'm used to. But as it turns out, it's not so much unlike what I'm used to. Please exit through the gift shop. The lower level of the cultural center is filled with these little stalls selling artwork, scarves, trinkets, and I'm sure there is at least one tea monger down there. Everything you need. Thank you for joining me on this visit to Konya. I hope your interest is piqued to visit the home of Rumi someday. If you like this video, please like, subscribe, comment, share it with your family, your friends, that guy you met the other day at Kinko's. And if you haven't already, check out my podcast. The first episode is available right here on my YouTube channel, or you can find it wherever fine podcasts are served. Just ask for Squeaky's Cauldron. Join me next week when I travel to the enchanting land of Cappadocia. You are not going to want to miss this. And if you're interested in booking a tarot reading with me or looking for some custom art, you can find me at my website, squeakyscauldron.com, or just DM me here. Use the code SQUEAKY2021 for 25% off whatever you're looking for. Thank you, beautiful souls, and I'll see you next time.